Welcome back to Get the Dirt. We're still here at Joe's house, and Tim is helping me out with some of the frequently asked questions. I'm sure you get a ton of them at the shop.
We do.
And we're down here by the fish pond end of this yard. One of the things that I think we should start with is what do you do in the spring to sort of wake up the pond?
Yeah, some people turn theirs off in the winter.
Yeah.
We like to see them run during the winter. It makes spring startup a lot easier, but you really need to get the debris, any of the leaves and things out of the pond to start up at the beginning of the year. You want to clean your biological filter to get that up and running. And then at that point, you're just going to start putting in your bacteria and things will take off.
Now, you don't want people to drain their ponds down to nothing and clean them up and then refill them with fresh water. You want to try to maintain this seasoned water, right?
You bet, because that water that's in there already kind of has a balance to it and has a bacteria going, so you want to try and keep that.
So maybe a vacuum, like a shop vac or something, to get some of the junk out.
Yeah, just to get the worst out, or maybe a net just to get those larger leaves.
There you go. Now the fish obviously are active now. They probably weren't a few weeks ago. I imagine the water temperature is starting to rise. At what point do you actually start feeding the fish?
When the water temperature maintains about 50 degrees and stays there, that's the time you can start feeding them. They'll come up much earlier than that. We have those nice spring days in February, but that's too early because they can't digest the food until the water's warmer.
Alrighty, and there are special spring fall type diets for them?
There are. Even Cheerios work great.
Oh, Cheerios.
Yeah, they love them.
My kids do too. All right. What about green water? I noticed that there's a little bit of algae starting up in here, the string type algae. People will also experience what I call pea soup algae, where it just turns everything green. You can't even see into the water. Is that a cycle? Is that something that needs to be treated for?
A little bit of green is certainly a normal part of a natural pond. So people do need to expect that. But we do add a couple treatments that are natural treatments, not something that's going to kill everything, but just something to add to the bacteria that's already there, and also some things to control the string algae so it doesn't get too long.
Now those sorts of things help take the nutrients out of the water so that there's nothing for the algae to feed on.
That's right, and actually having a sufficient number of plants certainly helps with that too, because that takes a lot of the nutrients out of the pond.
Well, and I like to have a little bit of algae in the pond. This green looks natural. The fish have something to graze on, and to be honest, it does put oxygen into the water.
It does. And we're looking at a natural pond, not like a swimming pool that's a chemically dependent pond.
Exactly, but chemicals might come into use if there's a mosquito issue, or do you have mosquito issues in ponds with fish?
You know, you really don't. Mosquitoes are really looking for stagnant water to breed, and so between the moving water and the fish, mosquito larvae is lunch to them. So really mosquitoes are not an issue with proper circulation.
So that's a plus for having fish.
You bet.
Well, fantastic. Any particular summer care that people need to know about?
Not really. Just like any of your plants, you want to deadhead your lilies during the summer, and you just continue to add your beneficial bacteria to keep the pond going and keep your skimmer clean, and that's really all you have to do in the summer.
It is important to keep your skimmer clean.
Everybody
should do that. You got that right. Well, the last issue I have is that, you know, you and MJ talk about how this particular feature takes the place of what most people have as turf.
Right.
What are the water implications, this versus having this in turf?
Well, we do live in a dry climate, so there is still evaporation. A lot of times we tell people to expect maybe a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch a day is possible. But when you can compare that to if this whole area was grass, this ends up using much less water than it would if it was planted in grass. You were watering it 3 times a week.
Well, and you don't have to mow it, so there's no air pollution or noise pollution.
Right.
You're not sending clippings to the landfill. You're not putting fertilizer down. So there's some other green issues involved with replacing turf with something like this, which I find to be entirely much more beautiful to look at.
And like we talked about too, it invites wildlife into your yard. They're losing more and more of their habitat. They've got a place to go to get a drink.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you sticking around and answering some questions for us. Next up on Get the Dirt, we're going to be visiting a very special garden out in Denver.